Hi, my name is Allan, and I'm an alcoholic. Nice to be here with you folks tonight, up here in beautiful Santa Maria. I want to thank your program chairman, John, for... I'm sorry, John... I'm sorry, Jim... my good buddy. He's such a good buddy. He calls you up in Los Angeles, says, how'd you like to drive up and pitch? I said, well, I did that last year and the year before. He says, I know, but, come on back. I said, okay. So I said, well, why don't we make a little weekend out of it? How about gave me a motel up in Cambria, and make sure it's one of those ones with a fireplace. So he said, okay. So he goes ahead and does it, and he calls me back. He says, well, I put the reservation on my credit card. So I said, don't worry, I'll take care of that. Well, it was one of those phony fireplaces, I mean, it wasn't your wood-burning fireplace that I like to have, that I'm entitled to, One of these crummy things with the gas. It goes off, had a clock on it. It turned off every 5 minutes, So the room was $68, and I just left it on his credit card and screw him. But anyway, tonight, as in many AA meetings, most AA meetings, we're here to talk about alcoholism. And tonight we're going to talk about my alcoholism. Maybe next Sunday night, you'll be up here. You'll be talking about your alcoholism. I won't be here. So I could just tell you that I've been sober 8 years and 3 months, and my life has gotten a hell of a lot better than it was, just as our birthday people said, than it was before when I was out there batting around. And I might just tell you my story. Last time I spoke here, I was given 16 minutes to tell my story. Because that night it was, I don't know, it was 44 birthdays, I think it was. But I had to do a lot of abbreviating. I just talked about every 10th drunk I had. I think it was the way. Tonight I will be able to give you a whole combat story here. But I was born and raised up in San Francisco, and when I was 13, I was one of those 13-year-old kids that was very nervous. I don't know if you ever know what I'm talking about. I was one of those kids that I always had a lot of water right here in the palm of my hand. It's called sweat, is what it is. And I would be standing in front of my locker at Lincoln High School by myself, looking across the hall at two guys talking, and wanting to be over there with those two guys, in on that. But I wasn't. I was over by myself. And then I knew that I probably shouldn't go over and talk to those guys, because I was kind of a loner. And as a consequence, I went all through high school just standing in front of my own locker and not really talking to the other guys. I used to have an early morning paper route on the fog in San Francisco, and that was by myself, very lonely, listen to the foghorns in the morning as I delivered papers. And during the summers, it was also foggy. And I would just go up to the basketball court and have my own basketball and just shoot a lot of baskets by myself. It was terrific. So that's the kind of a loner I was. And I would have loved to have when I was 13, I wanted the 15-year-old guys, to really like me. And as a matter of fact, they really weren't paying any attention to me. So that kind of sets a stage then for my first drunk. Shortly after World War II, on a summer weekend, down in Boulder Creek, California. Now, Boulder Creek is up the way. It's about 15 miles in from Santa Cruz, in the mountains, in the redwoods. And 3 families, including my own, were having a weekend outing at this particular cabin. And there was myself. There were 2 15-year-old guys in that group. And along about 3:30, quarter to 4 on a Saturday afternoon, they said, Allan, tonight we're going to drink beer, and you can come with us. Well, obviously I like that for 2 reasons. A, 2 15-year-old guys had asked me to go with them and do something, and that was terrific. And B, I was going to get a chance to drink, which sounded like a damn good idea. So I went out, proceeded then to have my first drunk, and what that amounted to, we were drinking out in an open field Started about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, and I had 2, maybe 3 quarts of beer, and I can remember as I drank that, we're standing around drinking, that the field started to tilt the more we drank. And I don't know if you've ever had that experience drinking an open field, but that's the way it was for me. I found it was better for me to sit down on my fanny and put 2 feet out in front of me like this, and one hand behind me, and have my quarter Burgermeister in front of me. And that's a tripod for those of you guys in the construction business. What you do is you get a lot of solid base here for drinking, and then you can let that backhand flop out of the way, and you can lie down and pass out, and which is what I did. And I woke up probably around 10:30, 11 o'clock, and all I could see were millions and millions and millions of stars. Reason for that, I was lying flat on my back in an open field on a clear summer night in the mountains. And by definition, God has put up a lot of stars up there for us to see. So that was my first drunk. And what happened was I had to get home drunk, you know. And it's one thing to get home drunk when we're adults. We know how to do it, you know. We can get home, we know where our car, we park the car on the lawn, get the key in the door, get down the hallway, stop and throw up if we have to, drop our clothes off. We know where the light switches are pretty much, you know. We can get in bed and, you know, somehow get it together to hit the sack, you know. But when you're 13 years old and you're first drunk and you're not going home, going to a strange mountain cabin with sleeping bags all over the floors and different light switches and doors that were open the wrong way and bunk beds and a whole series of obstacles for a 13-year-old drunk to go through on his first night out, you know. And I had to get up and get sick in the middle of the night, you know, and this was a problem. And along about 4 in the morning, 4 guys picked up that cabin and they started to spin it around. And my first experience with a spinning room, you know. 13-year-old kid, I was scared, you know. And it was a funny thing. I go to meetings on Wednesday nights over in Roxbury and Beverly Hills down there in Los Angeles. I was sober about 3 years, and I was relating that story to a couple old timers there, and they said, "Well, geez, you dummy, don't you know how to stop a room from spinning?" I said, "Well, yeah, later on as a drunk I learned how to do it, you know. I mean, what I do is I closed one eye, kind of wrenched my face, and I would hold my right leg out stiff and bring the room to a halt this way." I said, No, son." He said, "What I meant is you just take a foot out and put it on the floor, and that stops the room from spinning." It was amazing. Here I was sober 2.5 years to find the official AA way of stopping a room from spinning. What did I know? All these years I'd done it my own way, you know, and found out I was doing it wrong. I was a little embarrassed. But anyway, the next morning I woke up and this gal who was the hostess was fixing these real runny pancakes. You know how sometimes you just don't make it on the pancake batter and it's just too goddamn runny, and the more milk you put in it, the runnier it gets. And it was just runny, and they were soggy. And I had to eat these things along with the orange juice and the milk and the fruit and the whole thing. And I was over in the corner. I was wedged in the corner of this room. It was a hot kitchen. It had a potbelly stove, and it was hot. And I was sweating, and my throat was all dry and parched, you know. And I was a 13-year-old kid, and I was having my first hangover, and I didn't feel good. And it was a kind of a hangover. It was kind of with the axe down the middle of the head, where your head goes into the 2 parts. You know what I'm talking about? It was complete with those little... Yeah, it was complete with those little white things that come down in front of your eyes. It's those little white things. You reach out for them, but they're not there. But it's those little white particles that come down. And that was my first drunk and my first hangover. And about 10 o'clock, they said, "Okay, we're going to a public swimming pool." And so we jumped in this car and went over this public swimming pool. You know, it isn't a public swimming pool. You know, they put a stamp on your hand. You know, and they give you a towel. You know, and then you report in. You know, and I went way in the back of the corner of this pool in a lawn back there, and I just lie there and I just dry heaved all day. About 4 o'clock, I brought him back a green towel, and that was it. Now, as I look back on it, that experience might have been my higher power saying, "Well, now look, Allan, this is your first experience with alcohol. Looks like for the last 15 hours or so, it's just been kicking your ass. And as a 13-year-old kid, you might want to take a choice now and not drink, because this is very powerful stuff. And look what it's done to you so far." Well, you know how we are. We have to get on with it. 2 things happened to me when I was 13 after that first drunk. First one was I was taken to the bedside of my Uncle John. my mother announced one Sunday, Uncle John, that was her brother, my favorite uncle, 52 years old, been a drunk San Francisco house painter for many years, brought my mother and my aunt over from Glasgow, Scotland, took them through Ellis Island, you know, just a super guy. He was kind of the father in the family. And my mother said, Uncle John is dying. He's dying of cirrhosis of the liver due to his alcoholism. Doesn't have much money, so he's dying at home. And we're going to go over and see him this afternoon and say goodbye to Uncle John. So that's exactly what we did. And Uncle John was a great guy. And when he was at our house on Christmas or Thanksgiving or Easter or any holiday, why, my Uncle John would, he would need a big shot of bourbon and a water back about every 20 minutes. And while he was at our house, you know, on these holidays, when my dad would give my Uncle John a big shot of bourbon and a water back about every 20 minutes. So, gee, by the come at 4 in the afternoon, by 10 or 11 o'clock at night, my Uncle John would have put away a quart, you know, and he'd be really, his old songs and Bobby Burns' poetry and his Scottish songs and everything would be all mixed up and everything, you know. But I used to sit there and watch him, and I really loved this guy, and he was a neat guy, my favorite uncle. But now I was looking at him in his bed, because it was that Sunday afternoon. We'd now driven over to his house, and I was looking at him, and his color was brown and yellow, and his eyes were yellow, and he was hallucinating, and what he had was alcoholism. He was he was dying of alcoholism, and I was standing there with my cousin, his son Art, who was 14, I was 13, and it was a very, very sad sight. That was on Sunday. On Wednesday, we were at the funeral. Now, what had happened was that on Sunday, my Uncle John was dying of alcoholism. And what he did was he died of alcoholism. And now, on Wednesday, we were at the funeral, say. And this was the first dead body I'd ever seen, was my Uncle John, who died of alcoholism. And I was standing there alongside of his casket with my cousin Art, his son. I was 13, Art was 14. And Art said, you know, Allan, he said, I'm really glad my dad died because, you see, for the last 6 months, I really haven't had a dad. And that was it. Well, that experience, you see, might have been a higher power saying to me, now look, Allan, you're 13 years old, you've already had a drunk experience, several of them now, with alcohol. Seems like alcohol is not, you're unable to control it, it's not doing you any good, it seems to be really working you over. And now your Uncle John has died of alcoholism. You've now seen what it can do. It's put a 52-year-old guy right in the ground as a very young guy. And so therefore, you might want to take a choice. You might want to consider not drinking, you know, go another way. Well, you know how it is. We have to get on with it. And when I was 13, the next thing that happened to me, I went to work in a liquor store. It was actually a drugstore, but we sold a lot of liquor. And I found that I could steal booze from this drugstore and steal it and give it to the guys on the football team, and they would like me. I don't know if you understand that, how that works. It would work something like this. I would be outside of the chemistry lab, say on a Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock. And Harry, the left end, would walk by and say, hi, Al, I think I'd like to do a little drinking this weekend. I think I'll try some gin. How about getting me a half pint of Fleischmann's gin? And I'd say, sure, Harry. Then it might be Thursday morning in front of the biology class, and I'd see Sid, the quarterback, and Sid say, Al, how about getting me a half pint of Old Granddad for Friday night? I'd say, sure, Sid, no problem. So every Friday night then, I would steal 8, 9, 10, 13 half pints of booze, always steal plenty for myself, but steal it for all my friends, all my best friends, and I put it in the garbage, and then I'd hide it in the garbage and take the garbage outside of the store and put it on the side of the street. And then we'd lock the store up, and Sam, the owner, would say, good night, Al. I'd say, good night, Sam, and I'd pretend to walk up the street. And one of my very, very best friends would drive down in his car. Can't remember his name right now, but he would drive down in his car and say, hey, Al, you got the booze? And I'd say, sure, you know, and then I'd go over and I'd start pulling them out. I'd say, how many did I have? Did I have 9? Was it 9 or 11, you know, that I had? And I'd pull these half pints out and give them to the guys on the football team so they'd like me, and always save plenty for myself so I could get drunk Friday nights and Saturday nights. It was terrific. I was able to be a high school drunk and get drunk every Friday and Saturday night. Sometimes my folks would go away for 2 weeks on vacation, and I could get drunk every day during summer. It was terrific. Sometimes I'd go away for 2 weeks up to Russian River, about 90 miles north of San Francisco, and get drunk up there every day for a couple of weeks. So I was a high school drunk. I'm very pleased to report to you tonight, very proud to report that I made a very smooth transition from being a high school drunk to being a college drunk. Now, the requirement there is that you go to college. Yeah. For me, that was a 17-mile move from San Francisco to Berkeley to the University of California. And you son of a gun, my alcoholism got over to the University of California. I've often wondered how my alcoholism got from San Francisco to Berkeley, the 17 miles, and I finally figured it out. It came over in my laundry is how it got there. Later on, as an adult drunk, I moved from Los Angeles to Houston, took a geographic, as they call it, and found out that my alcoholism had arrived in Houston when I got down there in Texas. And I finally figured out how that happened. Beacons brought it down. So wherever we go, it seems to be there with us and waiting for us. And after a year at the University of California, following a drunken pattern over there of getting drunk a couple of nights during the week and always on the weekends, I found myself, after 1 year, in Dean Ramsey's office. Now, Dean Ramsey was the assistant dean of men, and he was saying to me, "Mr. Jenkins, you're a very, very fortunate young man." And I don't know if you've ever had a dean talk to you. That's the way deans talk. If you're in a dean's office, they're usually talking to you about something very seriously. And this was very serious. And I was afraid. Back of my hair was standing up. I didn't know what the hell was going to happen. And what the dean said was, "Mr. Jenkins, you're a very fortunate young man. You see, because you're from the San Francisco Bay Area, and we have very many fine junior colleges in the San Francisco Bay Area for people of your caliber who cannot make it at the University of California." The dean was always long-winded, and he always talked in Swahili. What he was really saying was, "We're throwing you out of the University of California." And indeed, that's what happened. So there it was. I was thrown out of the University of California. Now, what I could not see at that time, at age 19, was I was having my first major living problem as the result of being an alcoholic. I was being thrown out of the University of California. I went over there and wanted to play it under my rules, and I didn't measure up, and I was being thrown out. Now, I looked at it as in a kind of a different light. I had some professors who really were a little unrealistic. Some of them wanted you to take midterm examinations. Still, I had another group of professors that wanted you to go to class and do homework assignments. So you can see the unrealistic kind of guys I had to deal with there during my freshman year at Berkeley. And believe me, that was really the viewpoint I had, as I can look back on it now, my own mold of the world. And here I was coming right smack up against an institution that had some rules and regulations, and yet I was just flunking out and getting put on the side and just getting knocked over. And I couldn't see it. I couldn't see that that was my first major living problem as a result of being a drunk. Now, I like a lot of things about Alcoholics Anonymous. And one of the things I like is that after you get a year in Alcoholics Anonymous, you can do hospital and institutional work. During my first year down in Los Angeles, I was very attracted to that, and I heard people talk about doing H&I work, you know, taking the meetings into the jails and the locked psych wards and the slammers and the hospitals. And so as soon as I had my year, I got active in that kind of work, and I stayed active for 7 years and 3 months doing that. And I was sober about 2 years. I got a panel right away up at Wayside Maximum Prison. That's a county prison for men in Los Angeles. It's up on I-5. It's across from Magic Mountain. In the maximum section, just last Wednesday night, there were 1,580 guys in the maximum section. The thing was built 25 years ago to hold 740. A little crowded, a little smelly. Any event, I was up there one night, and I was sober a couple of years, and we had a small group that night. I shared, fellows were sharing. As soon as I finished, Frank, a young inmate, sitting next to me, said, "Gee, Allan, I'm really glad you guys came up here tonight because, you see, I'm 27 years old, and for 7 of the last 10 years I've been in jails and prison, and I finally figured it out that my problem, every beef I ever had, was because of drinking and drugs. And so I'm getting out of here in a few weeks, and I'm going to try Alcoholics Anonymous." And I thought, geez, is this terrific? Is this something? I was listening to Frank, But then, all of a sudden, I saw myself back in Dean Ramsey's office. I saw myself at age 19, never able to hook it together, get drunk during the week, don't do your assignments, get thrown out of school. And it took me until age 41 years, till I was 41 years old, to finally figure out that alcohol was causing my living problems, all the other living problems I was to have. And here's young Frank, at age 27, putting it together. Get out, get on parole, get loaded, test dirty, and your parole officer sticks you back in the slammer. And that's the way it works. And now he finally put it together at age 27, and he was going to get into Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, I had to go on for another 14 years beyond Frank. I haven't seen Frank since. I don't know whether he made it or not. I hope he did. But that's why I like to see a lot of the young people here. I'm just up here. It's great to see young people, wrapping it up at age 27. What the hell? Wrap it up at age 25 and 19 and 22 and 30. Any age is great. But it's really great to see the young people, for me, now that I've turned 50. Boy, I'll tell you. If you come into Alcoholics Anonymous and you get sober when you're 41 and you stay sober going into 9 years, first thing you know, you're 50. They never tell you that when you come into AA, do they? They never tell you that. Just like they never tell you any of the buzzwords, You come to your first AA meeting, someone's got up there going on about having a sponsor and all about central office and, and all about 12 steps and all this. And here you're just sitting at an AA meeting wondering what is all this stuff with all these code words and buzzwords, And no one ever takes time to explain to the newcomers, like we have here tonight, some of these buzzwords in AA and what they really mean. So, because I have the extra time tonight, I thought I'd take the time and explain it to you, but then, again, no one ever explained it to me, so the hell with you. You just have to keep coming back, that's all. Part of the system around here. I still don't know what an Eskimo is. Well, anyway, I managed to get back into the University of California and graduate and get married and moved to Southern California and moved into Los Angeles. And what I became then, for the next 18 years of my life, was a daily, day in, day out, steady, consistent, dependable, kind of just your steady guy, your steady suburban businessman drunk. And I was that way for 18 years. As a matter of fact, I'm very proud to represent that segment of Alcoholics Anonymous, the daily businessman drunk, because we don't get enough attention, really. We keep the wheels of industry well-oiled if we stay well-oiled. We keep the economy moving. Keep it all going for you folks. And when we finally crash and burn, we get to AA, we're kind of relegated over to the corners, kind of the old straight fuddy-duddies, especially down... I got sober out in Pasadena, on the east side, kind of the conservative side of Los Angeles, with the attorneys and the judges and the CPAs and the insurance men, those kind of guys, Now we live on the west side of town. Everybody's in show business, and Jesus, out there, they're all dope addicts and everything. You know how it is. So. Oh, God. Anyway, I was just a suburban drunk, and I know all of you here in agriculture and all of the things you do up here in Santa Maria and the beach and horses and animal husbandry and all that kind of stuff. So you really don't, maybe a few of you don't know what a suburban businessman drunk does, so I'll just, just in case there might be someone here who might not know, I'll just spend a few moments giving you a few highlights out of the life of a suburban businessman drunk. First of all, you have to live in suburbia. For me, that was Pasadena, California, on the west side of the Arroyo, right below the Rose Bowl. And if you are a suburban businessman drunk, one of the requirements is you have a house. And I had a house, and I had a first mortgage, I had a second mortgage, I had a third mortgage, I had a Shetland sheepdog, two Shetland sheepdogs, a Dalmatian, 5 cats. Sometimes we had gerbils, most of the time we had hamsters, had a gardener, 2 kids, and a wife, in that order. Now, as a suburban businessman drunk, you have to have it together and do certain things with the family, such as, go to Little League drunk. Watch your son be catcher and be a good ball player, but be there drunk while he's playing. Go to PTA drunk. Go to the open house. You know the open houses that they have for the kids? Now, the kids go back to school in September. It's usually the second Thursday in October is open house. By this time, the teachers have had a chance to get the little monsters organized, and you go into the room, and all their paintings are up on the wall with their handprints, and all the little crap that they've done for 6 weeks is all up there. And you come down to open house, and you sit in those little tiny chairs, and the teachers lie about how great the kids are doing. And you got to be there as a suburban businessman drunk, but you're drunk, you see, while you're doing this. And then you have the real fun after you come to Alcoholics Anonymous, because as it turns out, that a lot of teachers turn out to be alcoholics. And thank God a few of them get to AA. And the ones that get to AA, you get to know them. And you can meet a teacher and talk to them. And they're fun to talk to. And they tell you how it was from the other side on that night. Because you see, most teachers, they get off at 4 o'clock, right? Well, they screw around. They say, great, the paper's Saturday. What the hell do I care? They leave at 3:30. But they get home and get into the soup right away. That's their drinking time, see? Except when it comes to that second Thursday in October, when they've got to get all the stuff up on the wall for the open house. And it ruins their whole drinking pattern. Talk to some of them. They have to go out in the park. They have to drink in the car, out of their purses. They have to do it, drink sideways out of a car. It's horrible. Below so no one can see you. And they have to get loaded anyway and use a lot of mouthwash, But they're up there in front of us, drunk, you see. And you meet the gal who was had that school bell. She just told that she'd be so hungover, but she had to ring that goddamn bell in the morning. Jeez, incredible. I guess I like a lot of things about Alcoholics Anonymous. One of the things I like is everybody's here. Everybody that we ever ran across or dreamed that we wanted to meet, is here. I always wanted to know airline pilots. They're here, We got guys down in Los Angeles who own hardware stores. For many years, they ran hardware stores drunk. Then they got sober, and now they're here. So in case you want to find out a little about a hex screw or something, you can just go and... You guys will tell you all about it, Every single kind of guy. I remember, I guess one of the most amazing kind of guys I met was in Mexico City. And I went down there, and there are many meetings of AA in Mexico City every week, but only 2 in English. And at that time, and I went to La Votiva in the Zona Rosa and to the church there, and had my little book out, and we sat down, and there were about 15 of us. It was just a sharing meeting. We went around, This guy starts sharing, he said, I was a horrible drunk. I was born in Curacao, and then my mother brought me to Mexico City when I was 10, and then I started drinking when I was 13, and I used to steal from my mother, and then I made my mother get my booze for me, and this went on for 10 years until I was about 22 years old. I was in a horrible shape, and I was a rotten guy. I said, I've got to get away from Mexico City. I've got to get away from this booze. So I moved to Morocco, and he said, then I stopped drinking over there, but I got into hashish and all of the drugs and chemicals over there in Morocco. And he said it was very bad. It made my mind all foggy, you see. And it's very bad for my occupation. I'm a fortune teller. See, I just see all these Arabs just walking around the desert over there still, wondering where the hell they are. But I always wanted to travel. I want to do a lot of traveling. And I did all my traveling as a drunk from an 8-foot couch in Pasadena. And I would do this traveling usually on Fridays when I got the National Geographic, You open up the National Geographic and you're having a martini and you're lying on your couch, It's really great. But every 3rd month the map falls out, And you open up the map and then oh, God, it'd be great to be in Tibet, or Africa, Australia, or, Alaska, New Zealand, all this stuff. And, but I could hardly get back to the kitchen, let alone get a refill, let alone get a travel agent on there or do something about it. And I certainly had no money, just brought to mind Pat sitting here last June. Pat's sober 10 years. I was sober 7 at the time. And we planned a trip to New Zealand. And we went to New Zealand. And we were there for a month. We went on the 15th of December and came back the 15th of January and had a great time. And that was an absolute gift of sobriety. Well, anyway, I was getting a little ahead of myself there. I started thinking about traveling. But anyway, I want to tell you that what happened was that as a daily businessman drunk, my life just went on a spiral, and it took 18 years. And many of the younger people come in these days using the drugs and the chemicals and stuff. I mean, it's all over for them. They just dive, they do a nosedive, and at 23 they're all burned out and stuff like that. But for those of us who did a lot of good drinking, right? We paid our goddamn dues, and our bodies didn't wear out on us until we were 41 or 50 or whatever it was. We put on our years. And that was my story, and it ended up at 41. I'd gone through the divorce, and I had 24 creditors. I owed them $88,000. They all wanted their money. One of my creditors got a judgment, turned the judgment into a garnishment. This is where they can come right in where you work and take half your pay. Right there with it, Very, very embarrassing. The marshal comes right in where I work and serves his garnishment to take half my pay. It's very embarrassing. I'm a vice president of a bank. Then he answered, "Operation, well, this must be some mistake, Mr. Vice President of this bank. Looks like a deadbeat to me." So I had some living problems that were piling up, as you may see. I had kids that I wasn't talking to, and I was living alone, and I was crying a lot, and I had no friends, and I was 41 years old. And I used to spend a couple of days a week on part of a day of each day, a couple of days a week, with a guy named Pat. Now, I knew Pat did not drink. I knew he hadn't had a drink in a long time. I had no idea he'd been a sober member of AA at that time for 13 years. And one day, after hearing all my bleeding all over him about my alimony and child support and psychiatrist and all of my problems, he said, "Al," he said, "why don't you come with me to Alcoholics Anonymous? There's a way of life there that may help you." And I said, "Well, gee, Pat, I'll have to ask my shrink." So he said, "Oh, okay." So next Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock, when I went to see Dr. Carlo B. D'Antonio out in Van Nuys Boulevard in Van Nuys for my regular meeting, and I said, "Pat wants me to go to AA. So, how do you feel about that?" And I said, "Well, I think I'll go." He said, "Well, that's great." So I went to AA. So I went to my first meeting of AA right before Thanksgiving in 1976. And Pat took me to where he was taken to his first meeting, which is the Women's Club in South Pasadena at the corner of Fremont and Rollins Street on Wednesday night. As a matter of fact, they've had a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous at that building ever since August of 1941. I never had a dark night. And they used to have 6 for the meeting back in 1941, and now they have 200. You know how AA seems to grow. And as I was hauled in there, the old dump truck of life just kind of dropped me off, and I went into there, and I'll be a darn, here were people from Pasadena, people I'd seen at the market, at Hughes El Rancho Market, people I'd seen over at Bullock's in Lake Avenue, people I'd seen at Little League, people I'd seen at the open houses where you sit in the little chairs in the second Thursday in October. And here they were. They were alcoholics of every description, young and old, men and women, from the Pasadena, San Marino, South Pasadena area, coming to AA because alcohol had done to them what it had done to me, just taken my life and wrung it out and delivered me there. So that's been 8 years and 3 months ago. And I guess I've just been kind of thinking back some of my first reactions to Alcoholics Anonymous, some of the things I thought about. And I'll never forget one of the first things I thought about, or I think about a lot, is I went to that first Wednesday night meeting, and then I went back the next Wednesday night. Pat brought me back, and a guy came up to me, a fellow named Hans, German guy. He said, "Hi, Allan, how are you?" I said, "How did you know my name?" He said, "Well, I met you last week." I said, "Oh, that's interesting." And I sat down. Why would someone want to know my name? I couldn't believe it, that my name was known to this guy, and that he came up and talked to me, you know. Now that's the kind of state of mind I was in, the shell, how shut down I was. And it just dawned on me then, week by week, how more and more people got to know my name and cared about me and wanted me to stay sober and helped me and gave me their phone numbers and encouraged me to go to meetings and were friendly to me. I had no one to be friendly to except Pat, and I only saw him a couple of times a week. And I just started going to all the meetings right there in Pasadena. And I'd see all these people again. And every time I see Hans, which is a couple of times a year now because I don't live in Pasadena anymore, I always thank him for being the first guy that said hi to me and remembered my name. So I've thought about that. I guess the other thing I think about is first come to AA, you get sober, you're sitting around meetings, and then you hear it for the first time. The first time you hear it, for me it was very strange. And it goes something like this. It would say, well, yeah, this guy went out and drank. What do you mean? Well, this guy, you know, you met him. His name is Bob. He went out and drank. I said, yeah, but I don't understand. He said, well, he came to AA, got sober like you. Yeah, I understand. Then he left Alcoholics Anonymous and drank. Be a son of a gun. So I remember that. It was very mysterious to me because it was the first few meetings. Sometimes you don't hear that right away, that people come to Alcoholics Anonymous, get sober, and then leave, you see. And that was a kind of an eye-opener for me. You stick around a while, and it turns out that you know people in Alcoholics Anonymous, you go to meetings with them and stuff, and then they leave, and then they die. And that's funny. I've had 4 of those. Bob Harper was number 1. Now, I had driven to meetings in Bob Harper's car. Bob Harper had driven to meetings in my car. Bob had told me I'd let him go on for hours telling me about the restraining order his wife had for him out down in Redondo Beach, so he couldn't go down and punch her lights out and scare the kids, you know. And then he would be over at my house. He ate dinner at my house one night. And we used to eat in restaurants sometimes. And then he got sober in AA, and then he left, and then his stomach was bleeding so badly he didn't wake up one morning, and he died, you see. Now that was number 1. And when that first happened, I thought, well, Jesus, this is something, isn't it? Now this brought home to me the disease aspects of this thing, because before that, you know, you go to AA and you sit down, someone says, well, you know, this is a killer disease, you know. Well, so what? I mean, what am I? I'm doing pretty good, you know. I'm sober now 6 months or 9 months or a year and a half. I don't know. What's this? Then finally your number 1 dies on you, see. I'm up to 4 now, see. And all 4 of those people have been in my car and driven with me to AA meetings. I had been in all 4 of their cars. All 4 of those people had been to my house. All 4 of them had dinner at my place. All 4 decided to leave AA, and damn, they died. They died on me. Now, they've died evenly. I've been sober 8 years. They usually die about once every 2 years. So it's kind of an even thing. So why does that happen? And I think about that these days as I'm sober over 8 years. I guess the things that have happened to me in Alcoholics Anonymous, I had my 21-year-old son trying to commit suicide. I had to, when I was sober, coming up on 2 years, I had to have him live with me for a while, and I had my daughter living with me under some trying circumstances. Did not drink. Had a lot of financial problems, had to take personal bankruptcy, go through all of that. Always thought I was going to get fired, had a lot of problems with my job area, but steady improvement over 8 years. The thing that comes to mind now, I think about my son. He lives back in Chicago. He was drinking and drugging around. He seems not to be doing it anymore. He's never come to AA, but he's getting married next month to a very nice gal, and so that's a real thrill for me. You know, we're on good terms today. Got a 23-year-old daughter who was kind of estranged from me, and now we're pretty good buddies. She lives up in San Francisco. I've made amends to a lot of people. I had 24 creditors, I told you. I owed them $88,000. I was sober 2 years. I was leading that Wednesday night meeting in South Pasadena, and I had a suit on. And Big John says, "Hey, nice suit." You know, when someone says, "Hey, nice suit" to a guy always goes like this, right? You know. I looked at the label. It was Beauchard Dowdy. I had stiffed Beauchard Dowdy. They were one of the 24 creditors. I stiffed them for $800. A couple of suits, sport coat, a couple of pairs of slacks. And the suit I had on I hadn't paid for, and I was sober 2 years. And I started thinking, started eating away at me. So I went to my sponsor, Fred, and I said, "Fred, I've talked to you about my money situation." He said, "Well, make a list of all your creditors and make them from the smallest to the largest. You know, let's talk about it." So my smallest creditor was Arco. I stiffed Arco for $20.88. My largest creditor was many thousands of dollars to a big bank in New York. And in between were just all kinds of merchants and people I'd screwed over and hosed over, you know. And some of them I was really pretty foul to when they tried to collect their money from me on the phone as I was answering their phone calls drunk. So sober 2.5 years, working with Fred, working out a plan, I started to set some money aside on the 15th of each month. And I feel real good when I do it. And then when I have enough money, I send in and write a little letter and fire off and pay off the creditors. And I've paid off 14 of them, and I only have 10 to go. Still a lot of money, maybe a lot. When I used to send it off before, I'd write a real long letter. "Hi, my name's Allan. I'm an alcoholic. Part of our program is an amends. We have 2 steps in the amends," you know, all this stuff, you know. And, of course, you know, you're sending it into some computer, you know. Some computer. "He is an alcoholic." You know, you get to see a computer reading this thing, you know. Then you send you back a form letter, you know. "Thank you very much," you know. So, later on, I learned that it's not necessary to do that. I just apologized for, in 1976, not paying them the money that I owed them legally, and here it is, and sayonara, you know. And it works out real well that way. And I feel good when I set the money aside, and I feel good when I send it off. And I've had a sponsor, always in AA, and I've worked the steps. Really where I am is still in the amends steps and trying to get a handle. I'm trying to learn how to meditate. And that's really something where I'm trying to get a handle on right now. But really making the amends and working the steps all the time. The day at a time thing is such an incredible situation. I can't believe that. I told you about this trip to New Zealand, and many people down in Los Angeles say, "Al, gosh, you were down in New Zealand. Did you go to AA?" I said, "I sure did." They said, "Well, for God's sake, how was AA down there? Was it different, or was it the same, or what was it like?" And I say, "Well, I'll tell you, quite different down there." "No kidding, what's it like?" I said, "Well, sometimes they have meetings in some strange little buildings that are called clubhouses in New Zealand. It might be an old school building. And then over the door, they have some crazy saying like, 'Keep coming back.' Down in New Zealand, they'll have like a podium like this, and on the front of it, it might say, 'We care.' Down in New Zealand, they have a silly thing. They have a picture of 2 guys sitting alongside of a drunk in a bed, and it's an amazing thing. On the wall, they have a bunch of things numbered 1 through 12 down there. So what I'm saying is that alcoholism seems to be the same all around the world. Well, listen, it's really been great being up here with you guys. I have now been up here 3 times, for God's sake, and I have told you every single thing I know about my alcoholism. But I'm sure I'll come back again if you ask me. Thanks.